Hello, welcome to Record Sports Hotline Live. My name is Daniel Coss. Sadly today, I'm not joined by Keith Jackson. I am joined by two undoubtable upgrades in Record Sports. Andy Newport. Andy, how's it going?
Very well, Daniel. Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thank you for that build-up. That's quite the build-up.
Well, listen, your Majesty is only matched by one person, Andy, and that's the one and only Ross Poucher. Ross, how's it going?
Good, mate. How are you?
I'm very good. This is an all-star lineup, if I do say so myself. I mean, not that Keith's bad or anything, but he was the T-boy. We sort of elevated and that, and it's good to get some pros in. That's all I'm saying.
He's coming for you tomorrow.
I hope that's not a tongue you've got planted firmly in cheek there. I'm feeling that was a sort of damning us with faint praise sort of thing.
I think he'll be watching this and he'll be sending a swift text any minute. Bye, football guys. Andy, I believe you were at Rangers yesterday. I think it's probably the best place for us to start. A win into the quarterfinals, but as I've got some comments from Rangers fans that will illustrate, not the most convincing victory.
No, it's just more of the same sort of stuff that we've been seeing for Russell Martin's team so far. Obviously, a lot of changes made to the team, to the lineup yesterday. 10 from the side that lost to Pils in the second leg on Tuesday night. He tried to explain it away by saying these guys obviously not played a lot of football. First time for them to sort of have a run out in front of a crowd. He wasn't expecting it to be sort of scintillating, sparkling stuff, but I think a lot of the fans turning up would have been looking for signs somewhere that this new game plan, new tactics that Russell Martin's trying to implement was going to, show some signs of clicking, and I don't think there was many of that. So yeah, I really, another sort of underwhelming display. A few moments where they get themselves going, they play well for maybe 10-15 minutes, and they switch off, and that's exactly what happened with the equaliser that Alloa scored just after Nadim Bayrami. He scored an absolute cracker. It was a fabulous finish, sort of kissed under the underside of the bar and its way in. You thought, right, okay, they've got through that stuffy early period where Alloa are just going to sit in. You really expected Rangers just to sort of kick on from that point, but they did the opposite. They just sort of reverted to this sort of lifeless keep ball, didn't really do much with it, and just invited pressure. A couple of moments of slackness, started off by Manny Fernandez in his debut, slap pass into Nasser Jiga. He's sort of forced to stretch to get it, and because of that, sort of drives into midfield. He's robbed the possession. Alloa up it wide. Must say Bailey Rice puts in a really half-hearted challenge, and the lad Stephen Buchanan, and from there it's a total mess. Alloa at the ball at the box, it ricochets about. Joe Rothwell lucky way get away with a handball in the line. Falls to McLaren. He tries to clear it, puts it off Joe Rothwell's face, and it goes. And at that point, you were starting to think, oh no, Russell Martin, this could be a really messy day for you. But I think thankfully for him, Manny Fernandez gets a header, gets him back in front. They get a penalty, and then in the second half, score that. Yet again, they sort of just switch off. They coast for a bit. It allows Alloa to get themselves another goal back. And here you are with 10 minutes to go in a game against, League One opposition part-time. The Rangers are again looking anxious, not really hanging on, but certainly looking a wee bit nervy. And that was the sort of vibe around about the stadium. So, as I say, any hopes of just a performance that would just allay some of the concerns that the punters have got, I don't think they've seen much sign of that yesterday, to be honest.
We've got plenty of comments on yesterday's game, as I mentioned at the top, Andy. Before we come on to them, though, let's try and focus on some of the good points from the Rangers game. Mikey Mo, I thought he looked really bright from what I saw yesterday.
Yeah, in flashes. Yeah, I mean, certainly the kid's get something, but I think we have to remember he's 18 years old. The fact he's been up here for about 3 weeks and he's only about to make his debut yesterday because they had to wait for him to turn 18 just to get the move signed off. So yeah, I mean, the kids get confidence. I mean, we spoke to him after the game, and he comes in and he says, "I want to be one of the best players in the world." So the guys clearly get sort of high aspirations, and he believes that Rangers is the best place for him to sort of to start the journey to that. Whether or not he reaches that, we'll need to wait and see. But and certainly in flashes, it's difficult as well. We do have to give that caveat that when you're playing against teams like Alloa, they're going to sit in and make life difficult. They're going to double up in the wingers, so it's not always the easiest position to play. But yeah, I think what Russell Martin needs is more people showing that intent that Mikey Mo showed yesterday. Certainly, anytime he got in the ball, he would try to run at his fullback, he'd try to get past and get into space. Certainly they just need more of that kind of thing.
Let me run through a few of these comments I've been mentioning, Andy, because I think there's a lot of Rangers fans that need to get stuff off their chest. This one here, Davey says, it's not been great so far, has it? Fans will accept taking time with the performance, offer some sort of hope. Doesn't feel like at all that we're 1 or 2 signings away. Alistair says, every performance seems to be the opposite of what Russell promised. Slow in attack, ponderous in the ball, and awful at the back. I'm desperate for this to work, but I just can't see it. Petey says, the performances are actually getting worse. I'm genuinely scared what Brugge could do to us. And finally, Rangers Easy OK says, I'm willing to give Russell Martin a chance, but one thing finding a bit concerning is with the left back from Brentford on his way. That's now a right back, a centre back and a left back all on loan with no option to buy. It seems like we're kicking the can down the road. Different if the loans have the same impact as Czerny or Tillman, but not convinced at all with Aarons. And obviously the guy that he mentions there, Andy, is Brentford's Jayden Migoma, who Russell Martin after the game said he hopes there'll be a Rangers player. I think he's another exciting young defender. Yeah, again, it's somebody that Russell Martin knows from his time at Southampton. I think they had him in the first team there for a year. So that's the reason I think they went for him. But in terms of his experience, as you say, not much of that. I think the loan situation is a concern. Just the fact that whatever happens this season, Rangers are going to have to be looking into next year, looking to basically rebuild their defence again. So I think that fans are right to be ever so slightly concerned about that. But just some of the other points, the pace of play, I think, is a real concern. I've just before we come on there, I've been sitting watching a bit of Chelsea against Crystal Palace, and you see the speed which both teams move the ball. And I'm not trying to compare Rangers to Crystal Palace or Chelsea. But that's the environment from which Russell Martin has just come up the road from. That is, I imagine, is what he's got in his head, what he wants his team to look like. Now, obviously, the level of player Rangers can afford is a lot different from what teams in the Premier League can. But so far, what he has, whatever vision he has for this team, I don't think he's been able to translate it onto the pitch yet. And I think that's why you're getting this, certainly at best, sort of lukewarm reactions to what Rangers have been producing so far. So there's a lot of work needs to be done. Would 1 or 2 signings make a difference? I think it would help, but they have to be the right signings. For me, I've just written a piece for tomorrow's paper on the centre forward situation. I think that is where a lot of Rangers' issues stem from. Russell Martin spoke in midweek about how pleased he was with Jack Butland and the 2 centre backs over in Pilsen, sort of showing that bravery in the ball, willing to sort of take, not risks, but to leave it as late as possible before they play their passes, draw that press on from the opposition in order to open up the space for the forward guys. And certainly Cyril Dessers in that first half in Pilsen was so far off it, just continually giving up possession, leading to turnover after turnover. And that led to, we've all spoken about the stats with how many shots Rangers have had to face in their 6-7 games so far this season. And so I think getting somebody in there that's certainly just not even just a goal scorer, but somebody who's just more reliable, secure in the ball. I think you saw Wigamani coming on yesterday. He's not only got the technique, the talent, but I think he's got the personality as well to play up there, to handle that pressure. He's definitely, as Russell Martin said yesterday after the game, there's areas games he need to polish up. Certainly his decision making at times, when to release the ball, when to hold on to it. But I think for me, he's the best option in this Rangers squad right now. If they've not got the resources to go and get somebody else in. But again, he spoke after the game and said he's unlikely to start. In fact, he won't start on Tuesday night against Club Brugge because he's obviously had a disrupted pre-season. I just think it's maybe a gamble worth taking. I think there's a potential if Rangers don't get this right to get a real sore one against Club Brugge, because they're a proper team. Obviously, we've seen them pre-season. We saw them at Celtic last year, the Champions League. They reached the last 16 of that tournament.
And we saw kind of what the effects of a real sore one in Europe has did to Giovanni Van Bronckhorst's Rangers team, what it did to Michael Beale's team, and he lost heavily in Eindhoven in Champions League qualifiers a couple of years back. So I think they've got to think longer term. It's one thing losing against Brugge and missing out on a £40 million Champions League bonus, but if it's one of these bruising defeats that really saps away your energy, your confidence levels, then I think that can have a longer term effect. So I think they need to be careful with how they approach this one. Okay, Manny might not be ready to play the full 90 minutes, but if they can get an hour out of him, I think that's something they should be certainly looking at.
Pilch, I'm conscious that I've left you sitting there without bringing you in yet. We are going to talk a little bit about Hearts, and I want to definitely get your take on that. The games that are going on this afternoon in the Premier Sports Cup, Killie are 1-0 up against Dundee United. Marcus Dackers has scored there, and still Livingston 0, Hibs 0 in the other game, and of course the winner of that goes to Ibrox. Andy, you mentioned Russell Martin there in his comments after the game. I think we can hear a little bit of what the Rangers manager had to say. Let's have a listen.
Russell, your thoughts on that performance today?
I think I saw some really good bits and some stuff that I didn't like, but I don't think I expected anything different. The guys that just haven't played very much, when you make 10 changes to the team, it's going to disrupt something. So my end feeling is we get through, we score 4 goals, we should score more goals for sure. But in the first half, after the first 15 minutes, when we can't quite sustain the same level of intensity, it caused some problems which shouldn't happen. And I mean that really respectfully. Salah, the way they approached the game, they were great. But there was a lack of bit of energy because we had so much of the ball. Lack of energy without it could have proved really costly. So we have a couple of moments we shouldn't have, but that's when the team, the rhythm, the players are not in that is difficult sometimes. So I'm pleased with a lot, and some guys, Mikey will be so much better for today, Manny, Tello, Hams are back, so I feel really positive about that. But of course there's lots to work on and improve, but the most important bit today was I wanted to see some intent to really run in the final third, and in moments we had that, just couldn't sustain it for long enough, and I think guys haven't played a lot of minutes, so a bit tougher than it should have been at times. As I said, the group as a squad, because we had an opportunity to rest some guys today, which was important. The group as a squad will be stronger for it after the game with the guys that actually got some minutes.
Was Mikey one of the big plus points? Obviously, he's not played for a while, but he shows glimpses of what he's got.
Yeah, he showed glimpses. He's not played at all really. So he's had a couple of weeks here now. It's been just training, so he's been chomping at the bit. So you saw some moments, and you also saw some moments like he's a young boy, so sometimes, but we have to keep him free and let him express himself. It's not always going to come off, but I loved his intent with the ball. And we need more of that for sure. People are not afraid to lose the ball, risk the ball, run at players, and he'll keep getting better. So I'm really pleased with that. And Tello, I think you can see what he'll bring, the physical profile, the way he takes the ball, the way he moves. And I really liked Hamza's energy when he come on. Hamza, he can do things that other players can't. Sometimes he looks a bit mad, but so if we can get him to make decisions a bit more consistently, I think he'll really help us.
A bit mad.
Well, he tries to nutmeg the boy, but then his reaction to losing is fantastic. So I don't mind it. But honestly, it's he wants to express himself, he wants to play, and there's never a problem making a mistake as long as the reaction is really, really good. And that's the one thing I'd say today. After a couple of wobbly moments, the guys really reacted well, and they haven't lived it too much on the pitch, them players either. So that'll be much better for today.
The guys coming in today.
The first goal today, there were 6 or 7 opportunities to clear it, and it wasn't dealt with. Are you concerned about people not taking responsibility at the back? Because it seemed to happen again at the second Alloa goal.
Yeah, again, I think we made a lot of changes by the second goal, and people didn't, for whatever reason, when the guys are coming on the pitch, they have to really listen to what they're doing. So there's actually 2 players who are just not in a position they should be, which will probably help us a lot. So that's about being really ready when you come on. So that's a frustration. And the first goal, I feel for Liam, it's just, we let the boy on the inside in the first place. He just skips by, and then there's moments we have 4 or 5 bodies, and I think it's an own goal in the end. So it's frustrating, but I don't think we shouldn't concede. But I don't think I expected today to look perfect and fluid and beautiful. Just so many players on the pitch just haven't played any minutes yet, and it's been so full on. It was really important for us as a group and a team and a club that we we're able to get some rest into some really important players ahead of Tuesday that will make us stronger. So now we have 2 training days that we can really attack and be ready for Tuesday.
Can the guys?
See, Russell Martin there, see, just before we move on from Rangers, Andy, thinking about what he was saying there, he's got to start Igaman against Club Brugge, really, hasn't he? I completely agree with you. I think he might not be fully ready, but it's definitely a gamble worth taking.
I think so. Obviously, I'm not party to the fitness information, the stuff that the sports sciences are telling them, but also we saw last year in the Champions League qualifiers against Dynamo Kiev when Rangers were forced to sort of do without Václav Černý because of similar advice from sports scientists. He wasn't ready, hadn't had a full pre-season, and all this red zone stuff that they talk about, and it was one that was a contributing factor why they crashed out. Rangers obviously have had a huge turnaround this summer, a lot of money spent on them. I think to sort of fast track whatever the Americans have got planned for the club, they could do with that 40 million quid. Listen, who couldn't? So for me, just with everything that's at stake, I think a gamble on him is worth it. So we spoke to Russell Martin on Friday. The news on Cyril Dessers was a lot better than first field when he went down in Pilsen. It looked like he'd taken a solo and could be out for a while, but obviously they're hoping to have him back for Tuesday. So it's not like they've got no other options. But we've seen over the last round the sort of both sides of Cyril Dessers. Excellent in the first leg. Really performed well. Scored his goal from the penalty. Took it out really well. But the second leg was just a man down. Managed to somehow get himself injured, trying to go the referee into a free kick. So, for me, I just think Igamani offers so much more to this team, and I think at times you didn't see his full potential last year because he was having to sort of play off the left and accommodate Dessers through the middle. I think you get Igamani at his best when he's up front, and I think with the wide options they've got now, I think you could potentially see even more from him. So yeah, it's definitely one I would be tempted to take a chance if it wasn't going to be too much of a risk to his long-term fitness.
Elsewhere, the other big cup game that I had my eye on, Pilch, was St Mirren versus Hearts. JFK and Winston Churchill were alive when Hearts last won the League Cup. And it doesn't look like it'll be coming home anytime soon. I really thought this was going to be Hearts' year. Pilch, what happened?
I think it's becoming a bit of a, as we like to say in tabloid world, a hoodoo, isn't it? It was pretty much a carbon copy when Hearts went to St Mirren in the Scottish Cup back in February. It wasn't pretty. They can equalise late on after losing a goal, and the only difference was St Mirren got the penalties right this time and Hearts missed one. So it kind of went the way I was expecting it. It was not a good game. Hearts had a pretty poor first half. It was fine margins, but they can't really have that many complaints. The League Cup record that's starting to become a bit of a thing. They went out to Falkirk at the same stage last year, having dropped in after the group stages because obviously they were in Europe. But a pretty poor afternoon, and first kind of blot on Derek McKinnus' copybook so far.
It's a weird one because up till now you kind of thought they'd had a really strong start to the season, but I guess in many ways this is the first kind of test, and they've kind of fallen at the first hurdle, arguably. Oh, they have, eh?
Well, I think Aberdeen at home, they were decent.
That's true.
It was a good game to start the season. It was a good one at Dundee United last week. There's been a bit of a theme in that he started with a back three, despite not really having the players fit for it, especially now that Borchgrevink is he's going to be out for about 6 to 8 weeks. He brought Adam Forrester back from his cooperation loan at St Johnstone, but then he wasn't in the squad. Played Oisin McEntee at right wing back, and that's just not his position. He's been excellent in the middle of the park last few games. It just didn't work. And then he's changed things the last couple of games, and Hearts have looked better. Against Aberdeen, they were kind of in control anyway. Aberdeen came back in it after half time, then got the second goal. He changed it, and Hearts looked much better. Again at Tannadice last week, started okay, 2-1 down. Again, moves to a back four. Hearts looked much better, and we're going to win the game. And yesterday, admitted he maybe got his team the wrong way around. He had Landry Kabori in for a debut. Thomas Magnuson got his first start, and all due respect, I don't think St Mirren away in the cup is the game to chuck guys in. You know what you're going to get. You know it's going to be a hard game. They're going to run all day. They're going to be physical. They're going to make things difficult. They're going to try and, they'll be direct. They'll hit you on the break. They actually played some decent stuff early on. They kind of ran over Hearts a bit in midfield, and Stephen Robinson knows what he's doing. He's doing these kind of games before, and it says it all. McKinnus admits afterwards he maybe should have done it the other way around. I think a lot of fans are now starting to ask, well, if you've made these changes in the last 2-3 games and it's worked, maybe start with that. So maybe a lesson that fans want them to learn a little bit quicker. And it's one of the 2 realistic opportunities Hearts have got to win a trophy. I know McKinnus was saying in his preview he wants the players to envision them lifting trophies, are here to compete for that. And there's going to be the inevitable blowback when you do get knocked out. That's just going to happen, especially after Tony Bloom's comments, which he's ambitious but not necessarily helpful at this stage. So a bad day at the office for Hearts, and I think the big thing is for Hearts fans is Neil Critchley made a lot of kind of weird decisions last year and didn't really come out and own them, and McKinnus has done that, so I think that's a bit of a help, but it doesn't really make up for being out of one of the cups before the end of August.
Aye. Andy Carroll has written in with a rather scathing assessment of Derek McInnes' time at Hearts. Let me fire through this. Carroll says, so it didn't take long for the Tony Bloom McKinnus juggernaut to come to a shuddering halt. Does anyone really believe McKinnus is anything more than a bang average manager? His teams play horrific football. His Hearts team are now showing the same traits as his previous sides, falling over at every turn, the dark side of the game in full flow. The easy time he gets from all sides is quite something and will never change. I don't pity the Hearts fans because they support Hearts, but I don't think they'll have much to cheer for with him in charge. Look, bad day yesterday, but Carroll's a wee bit over the top, I would suggest.
I mean, yeah.
3 games into the season, nothing like it. Nothing like somebody jumping conclusions there.
Well, I mean, you mentioned Tony Bloom there, Ross. What is the kind of feeling amongst the Hearts support about his comments? Like you say, really ambitious, kind of refreshing to hear, but does it maybe put a bit too much pressure on the team at the minute?
I suppose it depends what part of your comments you look at. In terms of the long-term thing, I don't think any of the sensible Hearts fans thought Tony Bloom was going to come in and everything was going to change automatically. Hearts had a really poor season last season. They made a lot of signings. It's not a completely different team. So I think the big changes are going to take a while. Saying Hearts could split the old firm this season, I think I thought at the time it was premature. I think it'll prove to be that way. It's a hard thing to do, and you kind of need one of them to be well off it. I don't think Hearts have the evidence so far. Hearts are much better than they were last season. I don't think they've improved to the extent that they're going to be challenging for titles or anything this year. So, but again, it is 2 games in. Okay, Hearts are sitting top of the league. They've won not the easiest start to the season, has to be said. They were decent against Aberdeen. They were decent against United. So early days. I think the big thing is the tools that McKinnus will have at Hearts compared to especially what he had at Kilmarnock, and maybe to an extent compared to what he had at Aberdeen. I think it's going to take maybe another couple of windows to see the changes, see the Hearts changing the team that they want to be, and fans hope there will be. I don't think anyone's expecting Derek McKinnus to start implementing total football. That's not his style. But at the same time, I think writing him off after 2 games and describing anything as a juggernaut after 2 games is a bit much. And I would point out that St Mirren gave as good as they get in the dark arts. It was definitely one of those games yesterday.
And Andy, the away from the cup, Hearts are obviously 4 points ahead of Rangers already. I mean, where do you stand? I can see you smiling. Where do you stand on the possibility of them potentially splitting the Old Firm this season?
As Ross says, it was going to take, I think, one of the Old Firm, in this case probably most likely Rangers, to have a really off year. Listen, this might be the real off year, who knows? But I think just financially, it's such a huge gulf to cross that it makes it unlikely. But listen, Tony Bloom and James Town Analytics team have done some fantastic work. Turning a Brighton team that nobody really fancied into one of the sort of mainstay in the Premier League. Making USG champions in Belgium. So, they have the nous. It's just about whether or not financially they can match up to what the Old Firm can do. So I think it's unlikely. But listen, he's obviously set his sights high. I mean, even just to discuss at Mirren, I remember Tony Fitzpatrick when he was involved as chief executive at Mirren for a spell, get sort of pilloried for suggesting that St Mirren could get into Europe, and here we are, them sort of been in the top 6 for 3 years, qualified for Europe season before last. I think we should give, Stephen Robinson huge, praise. I mean, I live in Paisley. I know a few St Mirren fans, and they are overjoyed with the work this guy's doing. We obviously get a new contract this week. I think St Mirren are enjoying a real golden era right now. They, as Paul says, there's such especially going to the Smizer, it's a bit open windy down there. You get Gogic, you've got Ahara, you've got Kelly and Phillips in the middle of the park smashing into you. They've obviously just brought back Keanu Bacchus. I mean, I think I worried about them this season. I thought, having achieved top 6 3 years in the spin, I thought this might be the year they sort of struggle. But from everything I've seen of them so far, even losing the opening day against Celtic, I thought they were terrific. Alex Gogic at Parkhead was absolutely phenomenal that day. So I think they are going to be a proper unit again, and I can see them sneaking into the top 6.
And they play Rangers next, Andy.
Yeah, listen, and that's a pressure game for Rangers now, having made the decision to sort of flip-flop on whether they call it off or not. They have to go there and win. It's now unthinkable, having decided to play it, and obviously without not going to have Nasser Giga on board, to go there and lose that game. So potential, if they do there, if they slip up, then it's got a real potential to be quite a smelly one.
Right now, Ross, I would back St Mirren at least not to lose to Rangers. Do you think that's fair?
I think a lot of people would maybe say that, and especially as Andy said, there's been such a lot made of, are they going to play the game, or they're not going to play the game? It's off. They're scared if they don't play it, they'll be so far behind Celtic. They might play it and still be that far behind Celtic if Celtic keep going the way they're going. So it seems to have added a bit of unnecessary pressure on what's already a really, really tough place to go. You saw last year that they struggled at St Mirren, so it would not surprise me one bit if they did. Especially, they're going to have at least one eye in the Champions League, so they're kind of caught in a weird situation where that's usually a priority. But the flip side of that is, if you do take their eye off the ball in the league, that's just as important. So it's a lot of pressure on what would usually be a kind of run-in-the-mill early season league game. And as Andy said, he has to win, otherwise, the pressure is really, really going to be on.
I mean, this is the game, Andy, that they originally postponed Rangers and have now brought it back. Mark in the comments saying they're worried about it being 10 points behind, could be 10 points with 0 games in hand. He's obviously talking about if Rangers lose to St Mirren. But look, I know I'm stating the bleeding obvious here, but this next coming week for Russell Martin is absolutely mammoth, huge.
Yeah, it is. And, he came in, he was unfancied. I think that's maybe the kindest way I can put it. A lot of fans were sceptical of his record down at MK Dons, Swansea, Southampton, whether that was good enough to make him Rangers manager. I think he had to come in and try and win them over early. He's not managed that yet, and that's why. And I feel for him as well, because there's undoubtedly, I wrote it this week, he's paid for the sins of previous managers. That's why there's whatever patience the fans might have showed them ordinarily is gone. The Rangers fans are sick, fed up of being in this position, starting a league season, and by the time the kids have gone back to school, they're out the title race. So he's sort of paying the price for that. But listen, the only way he can turn it around was results. Performances might not yet come, but if he can get a win at St Mirren, if he can get a result against Brugge, and goodness, if he can get a result against Celtic, then that'll answer some of the critics. But right now, that does seem a big ask for this team that just looks ill at ease with whatever it's been asked to do. I think there's still players that aren't totally comfortable in the setup. I think there's still places they need to strengthen. So they're bringing in a left back. He's barely played first team football, let's be honest. So Russell Martin knows a lot more about them than we do, but the concern would be that lack of experience. You're going to a Champions League qualifier against a team, as I said, made the knockout stages last year. You've got a tough place to go at St Mirren next week, and then you've got a derby match, which is now looking like a must-win derby match. As you say, if you're 6, 7, 10 points behind Celtic a month into the season, then that's hard to come back from. It remains to be seen how this new board are going to react to pressure. We know how the previous board reacted. They would stand by you for a spell, but then when the pressure told, they would out would come the reacts and they would give you a P45, whereas we don't know how the Americans are going to react to this kind of thing. But Ibrox has already got the potential to turn toxic. You know, there was a whiff of that last week with the Dundee result. If things get much worse, then Ibrox isn't going to be a pleasant place for Russell Martin, and then I'll be interested to see what happens at that point. But listen, as I said, it has the best way he can relieve the pressure is to win games. Okay, it might not have to be pretty stuff, but if he can get a big result in Europe, big result at St Mirren, big result against Celtic, then he'll certainly answer some of these critics.
Just very finally, before we finish, guys, Anthony's written in talking about Celtic, and he says the easiest of deals to do, even outgoings like Stephen Welsh and Marco Tellio, are just so difficult to complete. What is going on? And Ross, I know, throw that at yourself. I know, listen, the reason why I want to bring it up is because no stranger to Celtic kind of dragging their heels in the transfer window. But the thing that's so weird is there just seems to be no links at all. There's any names that get brought up seem to be quashed immediately. It's just very, very strange, this light in the window. It
is, yeah. Although I would say at Celtic, in terms of in the Celtic context, it's not that late, given when they usually get them over the line. I've had a few late nights on Record Sport online.
That's true.
Waiting for those to get done. But I think in terms of Marco Tellio, I think they're kind of no manager is going to let players go until he knows he's got enough already in that he can afford that. I think that's maybe the issue with him, in that he's not going to get a look in at Celtic. But you know, Adam Ida's come under some criticism. Celtic look a wee bit short at number 9. All it takes is an injury to Ida. It's then Maeda's back through the middle. What's his options like out wide? Does he want to have an extra body? So I can kind of get that in a bit. In terms of Stephen Welsh, he's looking, he's brought in the lad from Man City. He looks fairly well stocked at centre back. So it might just be a case of Celtic seeing what the best deal they can get is. So I wouldn't say there's a massive rush for those ones. But in terms of, I think the one is, again, yet another summer window. We seem to be waiting on Celtic to really get going when they've got a big Champions League playoff coming up, which they've not had to deal with before. I would expect them to get it done against Kairat, but then I suppose it's weird. What strengthens Brendan Rodgers' argument more? Is it go and do that convincingly? It's right, I'm in the Champions League. Go and get me what I need to go and make a fist of that. Or if they struggle, if they go through, if they struggle and they go out, especially, it's like, well, hands were tied. You didn't give me what I wanted. So exactly. That'll be interesting to see how that one plays out if he starts launching a few grenades the closer we get to deadline day. But it's not. I can't say it's much of a surprise. Celtic kind of. I wouldn't say there's. It's not so much them being slow. It's a case of circumstances tend to dictate, what they do and when they do it, and it's just it's a repeat of previous windows.
Andy, John says it's a proven striking and some wingers we need pronto. And David says, I think we've done our business. Players will arrive in due process. Do you still think, we've talked about it a lot in the hotline, Andy, do you still think 2 weeks today, I think, is obviously that when the transfer window slams shut, you still confident Celtic will spend significantly between now and then?
I think they have to. If they're serious about keeping Brendan Rodgers beyond this season, I think they have to match his ambitions, and his standards are very high. He's already said he only wants to remain here if he believes the club's moving forward and looking to progress. So I think if they're serious, they have to. I think they need it as well. If they're going to compete in the Champions League, then I don't think Adam Ida's going to be the guy that's going to get the kind of results that they're going to be looking for. So I think they need certainly to strengthen that front line. The fact that you're sitting here, they're still persisting with Yang, who I don't think has utterly sort of lit the place up since they came here. James Forrest is still starting games at 33. A fantastic servant he is, but I think you would be looking for him to be more of an impact player. So I think they definitely need to strengthen, especially that front line. For me, you go, are they stronger than they were this time last year? I don't think they are. Having lost Kyogo and obviously Jota's his injury. I think they need to strengthen. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
Absolutely. And just to cap off, the scores in today's games in the Premier Sports Cup is still Livingston 0, Hibs 0, and Kelly 1, Dundee United 1. Owen Sturton has equalised for the Tangerines at Rugby Park. Guys, I think that brings to the end of Sunday's Hotline Live with Record Sport. Thanks so much for all the comments coming in. We really appreciate it. And we'll be back to do it all again at 6 p.m. tomorrow. Ross, Andy, it's always a pleasure.
Thank you, Daniel.
Cheers, guys. And thanks for watching at home. Hope you can join us tomorrow. Cheers.